Okay, so thank you everyone for being here today. And I feel really humbled to be in the presence of so many special and wise women. And so thank you so much. It's such a joy to be able to share some of my thoughts and experiences with you, and to be able to hopefully have some discussion afterwards so that you can share your wisdom as well. And so many of the women that are here have been a huge support to me, not just during the quarantine, but long before that. And so I bow to you. Thank you so much for your support and for continuing to do that. And I know that time, even in the time of pandemic, time is our most valuable resource. So I really want to honor yours by giving you, more than anything, some reminders of things that we already know, because we're all sisters here and we're here to support each other and remind each other to take care of ourselves. And as I say, hopefully we can have some really good discussion afterwards so we can share our wisdom, our collective wisdom with each other. But I'd like to begin with a short mindfulness meditation so we can become a little more aware and more in our bodies, and then just a tiny bit of movement that you can do while still sitting up in your chair or wherever you're sitting. So if you can, begin sitting up tall and just imagine that there's a string pulling up through the top of the head, gently lengthening the body up to its tallest posture. So the body can hang down from that string. And so in that way, you're tall, but you're also relaxed. And the shoulders can relax away from the ears, the arms can rest, and you can have your eyes open or closed, totally as you like. And so first, I'd like you to guide your attention to the breath right at the tip of the nose. So if you can just bring your attention to the feeling of the breath entering through the nostrils and leaving through the nostrils. Just let your attention rest here for a moment. Just feeling the breath. And then if you can stretch the breath out just a little bit, making the inhale a bit slower and deeper, and the exhale a bit slower and deeper. Just noticing the lungs and the belly filling up as you breathe in deeply and slowly, and relaxing as you breathe out. And as you're doing this, just relaxing all the muscles of the face. So relaxing the eyes and all the muscles around the eyes, spreading out the forehead, and relaxing the jaw. So letting the back teeth just slightly part, letting the tongue relax in the throat, all the way down to the root of the tongue. And just feeling the breath in the shoulders, feeling the weight of the shoulder blades, feeling the weight of the arms, and noticing where the hands are resting on the legs. Just feeling the length of the spine and the whole torso, allowing the belly to move naturally with the breath. And relaxing the hips and the pelvic bowl, relaxing all the contents of the abdomen and all the muscles around the hips and the tailbone, letting the breath circulate there. Just feeling the weight of the legs and the connection of the feet to the floor. And then in the same way, if you can guide your attention to what's below the body, the chair or the floor, So your attention is outside of the body now, to the space below you. And then moving your attention to the space behind you. And just noticing how it feels to move your attention to the space behind you. And now to what's beside you, noticing what's at the right side. And then at the left side. And then in front of you. Noticing how it feels to move your attention just by choosing to move your attention. If you can notice the sounds around you, noticing the sounds near in the same room, noticing the sounds far outside the room. And now, if you can bring your awareness to a recent memory of something that happened today or yesterday, of something that just brought you a little piece of joy. And just make your awareness very small. So you're focusing on a specific moment, a little snapshot of something that was really good, even if it was just small. And just relive that moment in your mind right now and notice how it feels to do that. And now, if you can focus on something that's happening later today or in the very near future that you're looking forward to, that will also bring you a little piece of joy, even if it's just small. And just let that future moment fill your mind right now. And just notice how it feels. And now, can you think of 2 words that will help you to have a better day? So the 2 words don't have to be a sentence, they don't have to relate to each other, but just 2 words that come to mind that can guide you for the rest of your day. And on the inhale, silently saying the first word in your mind. And on the exhale, the second word. And just keep that going with the breath silently. Just noticing how that feels as you repeat those words. And just letting that relax. If you can keep your focus in the body breathing and just keeping a soft focus, let the eyes open. And we'll just do a quick stretch. If you can grow tall through your spine. And as you breathe out, tilting your head over to the right and just staying here, breathing into the left side of your neck. And so if you can imagine that your lungs are not in your chest, but they're in the left side of your neck. So as you breathe in, it's expanding in the left side like it's a rainbow. And as you breathe out, it's relaxing. So the left ear is gently lengthening up to the ceiling. The left shoulder rolls back and down, heavy. Breathing there. And then as you breathe out, curl your chin in, just gently rolling your head over to the other side. So bringing the left ear over to the left shoulder and breathing into the right side of the neck and letting the right shoulder roll back and down, expanding the right shoulder like it's a rainbow. So feeling it expand as you breathe in And relax as you breathe out. And as you breathe out, curl your chin just gently in. And keeping your chin in, just rolling up. And just letting yourself settle into your bodies. And staying with your breath for the rest of our time together. And so I hope that feels really good for everybody. Yeah, nice. And so I did this because, I often want to call my work How to Take Care of the Creature. And the creature is me or you, or, we're the creature. And I think meditation practice gives us such a good illustration of why it's so important. We put so much faith in the power of our thinking mind, and how challenging it can be just to focus on the breath for a few moments, and how powerful it can be just to repeat 2 words with the breath, how much it can affect our state of mind and our perspective, and just a little bit of movement, how much that can affect us. The creature, us, is so easily influenced by everything we take in, the news, the things we're reading on the internet, the people we surround ourselves with, the kinds of food we're eating, the exercise we're doing or not doing, how we sleep. Some say the alignment of the planets affects us, right? All of this is affecting our thoughts and our emotions in a very tangible way. And I'll just give you a very exaggerated example. We can be feeling really hopeless and have all these thoughts to back up our hopelessness. It can feel very real. We trust our thoughts. And there's always some sort of news to back up our thoughts, especially if they're negative, right? Life is bad. This is never going to end. Everybody's corrupt. But we're not realizing that one source of our hopelessness, for example, is from a habit of watching the news late at night while eating snack food. So that's hard on our body and our mind for several reasons. But the first thing is that the snack food is making us have these sugar peaks and crashes. Alcohol does the same thing. And over time, this is lowering our dopamine level. And dopamine is the pleasure and motivation hormone. And it's also wreaking havoc on our gut, where 90% of our serotonin, our happiness hormone, and 50% of our dopamine are produced. So feeling positive is already super limited, and that's just by what we ate. But then we're also watching the news, and it's designed to be negative and addictive for the well-being of advertising companies, not for us, right? And we're watching it late, so we can't sleep because we've been in front of a screen, and all the blue light and the negative information is stuck in our system. So our cortisol levels, our stress hormone, is really high. And so we wake up after a poor night's sleep, and we're just feeling like we just can't do another day of the pandemic. And like, no kidding, right? When it's dark and it's winter, we have less vitamin D. And then to top it off, we're not meditating. So we're not able to observe the nature of our thoughts and examine them and see where they're coming from, and so we just take it at face value that every thought that we have is coming from some sort of intelligence, when in fact, our thoughts are more influenced by these little day-to-day habits and are not some sort of wisdom that we are in control of. And I don't mean to get all sciencey and percentage talk so soon, but I think it's really helpful to remind us that we're living more at the mercy of our body chemistry than we realize. But the good news is that when we do take care of the creature, when we're eating food that is good for the brain and the heart and the gut, and when we're moving, and when we limit our screen time but increase our time in nature, and when we're surrounded by other healthy, kind people as much as possible, and when we're getting enough water, especially in Edmonton where it's so dry right now, and sleep, and when we're meditating, which can simply be taking a few minutes just to settle the busy mind and focus on the breath. And then to, with compassion, observe the never-ending stream of thoughts that runs in the background and notice how constantly it's going, so we can recognize which thoughts are coming from fear, which ones are coming from wisdom, which ones are coming from the junk food. When we start to do just even some of these things, the nature of our thoughts and our emotions and just our overall life perspective is very different from the first scenario I described. And so this gives us just a little bit of a snapshot of how taking care of ourselves now during a time of crisis is so important, and even more so because of the increased isolation, right? We don't have access to the things we want to do. We can't even see the people that we want to see. And so it's really about what we're doing for ourselves and by ourselves. And I try to take care of myself as best I can. And it's work, but it is worth it. And I'm reminded of Randy's talk, the very first talk in this series, when he talked about fitness and he spoke about finding our why. Why should we take care of ourselves? And I can see how important this is, obviously, but I can also see how difficult this can be to find sometimes, especially during COVID and it's winter and there's lots of uncertainty and we can't visit our friends and everything's harder. You know, we can think, why bother? I'm just going to hide in the dark and eat ice cream all day, right? And I get that. And I have a few things that I could say, but personally, my main why, when I can find no other reason, when I'm feeling really down and unmotivated, I remember that I need to take good care of myself so that my dear ones, some of them are here, don't worry about me. Because I know that for me, when I hear that someone in my family or one of my dear friends is not doing well in whatever way or is not taking care of themselves, I worry, right? It weighs on me. And so I assume it's the same for them. So when they can hear in my voice, when we're talking or if we're writing, that I'm truly happy and doing well, that they can relax more and they can sleep better at night. And that really works for me. And also so that I have something to give them, so that when they call and they're down or they're scared, I can give them my love and my energy because I have it to give. And and it helps me. I have pictures up of my niece and my nephew on my fridge and my mom, and it helps to remind me, and I need these reminders. And so, you know, maybe that's helpful for some of you, that in those moments when you just don't have what it takes to take care of you for you know, that you can think of your dear friends and your dear family, whether they're still here on this earth or whether they're watching over you from someplace. You can do it for them, knowing that they're resting better, knowing that you're taking care of yourself. And so I do want to get into some specifics about self-care and my philosophies around that, but I just wanted to say just a little bit about my story, just as many of you know. About 2 years ago, um, I realized it was time to sell my Pilates and yoga studio, and I'd had it for 20 years and I built it from scratch. And in that time, I taught thousands of people and I certified my own teachers and I managed the staff and I developed all the exercise protocols. And I was just really in a constant state of producing and giving. And I loved that a lot. And I did have my own practice of exercise and meditation, but I knew it was time to give my own development the space and the energy that it was asking for. And I'd always called my studio Integration. I called her my daughter because I don't have kids, and my studio and my staff and my students, I always thought of as my kids. And they turned 20. And so it was time for one of us to move out. And I'd fallen in love with Argentine tango a few years earlier. And my background is as a dancer. And so I loved the technical aspect of tango. And of course, the shared moving meditation and, you know, the shoes and the music and the whole thing. And so I really did want to dig deeper into it. And so I did. I sold the studio and almost all my belongings. And I've been living here in Buenos Aires for just over a year. And just briefly here, I'll say that the power of intention was extremely important in being able to make this happen for me. So I just want to really give my support to the power of intention, if any of you are thinking of that, right? And so when I was in Argentina, I was dancing all the time and loving it. And I was studying Spanish. And I actually got a job through another Edmontonian who lives here. I think there's only two of us in the whole city as a tour guide. And so I was able to learn the history of Argentina and Buenos Aires. And I was walking through its architecture and I was experiencing all its culture. And I totally loved it. But mostly I loved that I had time to deepen my own meditation and my yoga practice and study yoga philosophy and holistic living and the power of the mind and the power of the heart. And so when the pandemic hit and Buenos Aires went into serious lockdown, like the police were patrolling the streets, making sure that we were only out for groceries, kind of lockdown. I initially took it as a time of retreat, and I was okay with that. And for sure, many of the teachers that I study with kept saying, you know, normally people pay big bucks to be in isolation so they can have all the time they need to understand the heart and the mind and no distractions. And we can here do it for free and in our comfort of our own home. And they were also saying, you know, we prepared ourselves for this. All of the practice that we've been doing in the good times has been for this. We know that life is uncertain, and here it is right in our face, but we knew it all along, so we're prepared. And these teachings were helpful for sure, but I'm not sure if anyone has been to a long retreat because, you know, it looks really good in the brochure and you're in nature and there's solitude and you have health food and all of that. And I had all of that in my little apartment. But I also had my four walls that were showing me all my faults, all my unresolved issues. I had the phone not ringing when I needed to talk to someone. I had no job, right? The tourism job was obviously gone. I had no close friends, no family here, no tango, no real security of any kind. And so the friends that I did reach out to can attest that my retreat time was not always serene and peaceful. I had many low moments and craziness, and I still do. And yet I was still good with staying with it because I knew that this was my time to really learn. But I just really want to say here that, especially with what's going on in Canada right now, that I would never minimize the effects of lockdown for anyone. Living in this country, Argentina, with almost 50% of the population officially in poverty, and the unofficial number is much higher, and so much of the economy run on the black market, I know that there is an enormous amount of suffering all over the world for the lockdowns. And I would also never minimize the suffering of loneliness. Loneliness was an epidemic before the pandemic, and it's so much worse now. But it's in fact because of all the suffering and the loneliness that I was seeing here and in Canada and around the world that I was inspired to face my own. And so that's also part of my why. I work to be as healthy and as happy as I can and face my loneliness because I can, right? I know that I'm in a position of privilege for many reasons, not just financial, but I don't have to spend all my energy taking care of kids or parents. I have good mental health. I have good physical health. I'm educated. I have the time. And so I felt and I still feel like it's my responsibility to learn how to take care of myself in a deep way because I can. You know, and so maybe some of you here can relate with that, you know, that we would never judge another person for how they're managing the loneliness or the uncertainty or the loss. But if we are able, through some mysterious grace that's truly beyond our understanding, to be able to take control and responsibility for our own well-being, if we're lucky enough to have that privilege, then we have to do it, if for no other reason than to stay strong for those who can't. And this goes into the mantra that I developed for me and to the work that I'm doing, which is fiercely happy, profoundly healthy. And so this is my aspiration or my guiding principle or a pledge that I have for myself and what I work for in my life and with my students. And I think that the two phrases, fiercely happy and profoundly healthy, mean the same thing. But I just want to break it down a little bit so you can see what I mean. And hopefully you'll be inspired to take it on just to some degree so that even in times of isolation or loss or uncertainty, there's this aspiration, there's a pledge that you've made and you can lean upon it. And so the first word that I want to talk about is happy. And I'm using the meaning of happiness that is not talking about a mood like I'm so happy, but is talking about a long-term state of being. And the most profound states of happiness have been described by spiritual texts essentially as being synonymous with enlightenment. And while there are many books describing what enlightenment is, my favorite definition is having the wisdom, that allows us to bear the sorrows in this life while still cultivating joy with enthusiasm. And it makes me think of the Dalai Lama, who is seen as an enlightened being, who's known more for his giggling than he is for his wisdom, right? And my second favorite description of happiness is sanity, right? And I think sanity is a perfect word to describe the union of happiness with health, that when we take care of ourselves, it's so much easier to be joyful. And so being happy is not a superficial thing. And while it may take many lifetimes to achieve, I'm pursuing it, I'm aspiring to it, I'm working at it. And there's a few really important reasons why. And number one is that I believe we need a reserve of happiness within ourselves, not only because life is inherently a miracle for which I personally will be ever grateful, for every flower that I smell, for every pair of eyes that I look into, even through a screen, life is beautiful. But because there will be times that when we're down and deflated and just really feeling hopeless about the world. And if we've just been filling ourselves up to the level of fine or good or even content, right? It's not enough, because when we crash, as we're bound to do as emotional creatures living through a pandemic, not able to visit people with the news mostly bad, we need to draw deep from our reserve of happiness just to keep going, to be able to remember to breathe when we're feeling overwhelmed, to not take it personally when someone doesn't give us the time that we were hoping for. And in my case, instead of listening to the four walls telling me that I'm a train wreck, to be able to have the clarity of mind in that moment, to know that the best thing for me to do is to have a nice long shower, put on some music, and just go to bed early. And so that's why I need my happiness reserves built up so I can keep going when it's hard. And the second reason that I believe in the pursuit of happiness is because it's not all about me and my happiness, right? It's not all about you and your happiness. I want our happiness reserves to be so full that it overflows to the people around us, right? If we're working to just be fine or good or content, we can't share that with people. We can't share, I'm fine, right? Fine is about the individual, and this world is about us living together. So we can't share fine, but we can share happiness. And I mean the deep state of happiness that I defined earlier. And this is why I'm saying fiercely happy, because it's happiness that's bigger than just this person right here. And it's happiness that comes with an understanding of its opposite. It's happiness that's there because it has to be there, because life is uncertain. All things do change. And so if we're seeking happiness solely from outside sources and outer circumstances rather than from our own inner fire, we're really on shaky ground, because this pandemic has taken a lot away from us. And that's what life does. And it's really easy to focus on what we don't have. But if we can practice being good to ourselves, loving ourselves, treating ourselves like our best friend, we can feel accompanied even when we're alone. And we can feel full, and the sharing is just automatic, right? And so in that sense, my path to happiness is paved with compassion for myself and for everyone, and learning how to best take care of, this creature and all the other creatures. And so the second part of my mantra is profoundly healthy. And I talked about this earlier when I was talking about the guts and watching too much news. And I'm a holistic life and nutrition coach as well. And so I want to get just a little bit specific about some practices that can directly affect our mental and emotional health, and not just our physical health. And so I'm just going to say a little bit about food. When we eat real food, so mostly fruits and vegetables, some clean protein, some healthy fats, carbohydrates, and when we avoid fake food, processed food, we're very directly affecting our mental and emotional health, as well as our physical health, obviously, right? So for example, when I said earlier that when we eat well, our blood sugar is more stable. Our dopamine levels are more stable. Steady sugars triggers steady dopamine. And as I said earlier, dopamine is the hormone of pleasure and motivation and concentration. So we're able to keep going and stay focused and enjoy the ride. That's what dopamine does. And the second example is when we eat real food and some of it's fermented, our gut microbiome is really healthy. And like I said earlier, over 90% of our serotonin, the happiness hormone, and over 50% of dopamine are produced in our gut. And by the way, over 70% of our immune system is in the gut, and that is no small thing in times of a pandemic. So eating well is really important all the time for many reasons, but especially when we're isolated and it's winter and it's dark and we can't see our friends. But I just want to say, on the coaching side of things, just to be realistic, not every meal has to be perfect. Try to eat a wide variety of foods. So not just celery and broccoli, everybody, okay? And just remember things like the first stage of digestion is called the cephalic phase. And this occurs just when we start thinking of food and cooking it and smelling it, and we're setting the table. Our digestive juices are already preparing, right? So enjoy that part because it accounts for 30% of the digestive process. So when we eat slowly and it's in a relaxed setting, again, the digestive juices flow better. And so we can absorb the nutrients and have overall better digestion. Okay, so that's my food talk. But of course, I also have to say just a little bit about exercise. And my particular area of interest in yoga and Pilates is about optimizing posture, core strength, healthy joints, healthy muscle balance. And I'm focused there because when all of that's working well, we have more options. We can go snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, we can lift weights, we can lift our grandchildren, we can kneel down and get back up again off the floor throughout our whole life. Our bone density is better, our balance is better so we don't fall down. There's less deterioration in our joints. But what I really want to highlight is the benefits of exercise to our mental and emotional health, because when we exercise, we release all the happy hormones, the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins. And so exercise makes us happy. It's a scientific fact. And I'm sure we've all experienced a time when we were feeling low, but we promised that we would show up to our Zoom yoga Pilates class. And so we did with reluctance, and we felt better afterwards. And actually, it's been shown that moderate exercise of a half an hour to an hour releases the most happy hormones and not extreme exercise. Okay, so hopefully that's good news for you. And also moderate exercise has been shown to reduce the most adrenaline and cortisol, which is our stress hormones, right? So that hopefully that's a good sign for you. And finally, exercise helps to balance out our estrogen, testosterone, and human growth hormone. So this helps stabilize our mood, our energy, improving our immunity, our sex drive, our ability to sleep, concentrate, all those things that are supremely important to us. And so I'm sure you already know all of this stuff, but I just wanted to remind you, right? Because we need to surround ourselves with people who are reminding us. That's what good friends do, right? Because even though the vaccines are on the way and life will become more open at some point, it's going to take some time. And I don't want to totally burst your bubbles, but we're probably still going to have some moments of loneliness and uncertainty at some point in our future, right? This is probably not the last one. So having a good self-care practice is always a good idea. And I just want to finish by saying that other key parts of my own self-care that I really recommend for you is to make sure that you have something beautiful in every day. So beautiful music or flowers, or I often hear the kids playing outside in the common area, and that's just a beautiful sound. Or if you have just a beautiful conversation with your dear friend, even through a screen. Interestingly, all my friendships have deepened during this time. Maybe it's been the same for you, despite the distance. But like the most important relationship that I've strengthened is with myself, right? So I can be my own best friend, and I don't feel as alone. and also my relationship with what I understand as divine energy. You know, sometimes I feel the divine in the mother nature, and sometimes in the universe, and sometimes in my community, and sometimes in my own spirit. And I just really recommend cultivating that connection with the divine energy, because it does relax a kind of inner anxiety that's so common in our society, especially now with all the isolation. And so, on that note, I'll say that I've been talking a lot about the importance of mental and emotional health. And so I just really need to voice again how important it is for people to be reaching out to your dear ones, to your therapist, to a doctor, right? This can be sometimes the most important thing. So I just want to make sure that I say that. Please reach out when you need to, because we need to, but also reach in, and surround yourself with beautiful things, with beautiful people, with beautiful music, and with things that inspire you not to just keep going, but to be happy, so that the people around you can feel it, and they can feel that it's possible, and they can feel that it's worth it. And so that's all I have to say. So thank you for listening. And so what I really am hoping that this has inspired some thoughts of your own wisdom, and that you'll share some of them with me. Thank you.